We're going to start the show. 5, 4, 3.
Anniston, Alabama.
Yes.
And so what was it like in Alabama during the time you were growing up in Anniston? I'm thinking you're probably a contemporary of mine.
I'm a little older. I was born in 1947, so I'm 70, and I was born in Anniston, and my grandparents lived there, and my mother had moved to be with them when my dad was in the war. So when he came back from the war, they lived in Anniston until, they got a place to live and all that kind of stuff, and then had my brother and me, and like 15 months apart, when 46 and 47, and it was a little southern town that had, my grandparents lived in an old Victorian house, and they ran a place called the Courthouse Cafe, which was right downtown next to the courthouse, and where everybody it was a lunch place. And everybody used to go there for lunch, and I used to bring them their waters. I'd go, when I was like 4 and 5 years old, bring waters to people. And Anniston was great, and it was just mostly because there were my grandparents were there, and I had an aunt and uncle, and my aunt's mother also was there, and she was kind of like another grandparent, and you just had, all this family that was close, and that meant a lot to me. And then we moved from Anniston to Montgomery, because I guess my dad wanted to be in a bigger place, and he was trying to get started. So we moved to Montgomery, and I went to early grade school in Montgomery, and that was in a way kind of like, when I see the To Kill a Mockingbird, that was kind of like what, in a way, some of the neighborhoods were around us. Those big old houses, and all the kids, you walked to school, and the kids came out, and everybody, you gathered as you went to school, and then everybody walked home, and it was just, it was sweet. And all of a sudden we went up north. My dad got a job up in Missouri and then Michigan, and it was hard to leave all that family. And we were the only ones that ever left on either side. My dad's from Georgia, just over the line from Anniston. So it was, and yet as I grew up and became almost like a different person, then my Alabama relatives, because of the influences that I had, I became the Yankee cousin, and that kind of stuff. But so it's certainly been an influence on my and the musical input. It was Hank Williams. He was born in Greenville, and he was all around. He was all over the airways when I was a little girl, and so it was Hank Williams and Patti Page and Patsy Cline, and that was that was where we came from, was the radio. And you're pretty much the same, aren't you?
We just stay with you for a second in Alabama. During that time period, the civil rights movement here in Montgomery, how much did you see of that where you were growing up?
It was almost like, we left before it really, we left in the mid 50s, or let's see, right in, 50, 56, 57, something. So it wasn't, it wasn't like the early 60s or the late 60s where it was really happening. But that was what was weird about going back down there. It seemed weird to me when I was a little kid to go into places that would have signs on bathrooms or water fountains, or entrances to theaters, white and colored, and it just it made me feel bad then. So I don't think racism is learned. It's sort of taught, and if you're not taught racism, which I wasn't. There's racism everywhere. I moved to Detroit, my gosh, and in 1967, when the riots came, that was a whole, it was a whole other thing. But it was always weird to go back, to miss the family so much, and then to go back to the family and kind of go tooth and nail with them about what was going on in the world,
I grew up in the home of a Presbyterian minister, And for all practical purposes, we were as progressive as most people got in the South in the 40s and 50s and 60s. So I grew up with that. So there was always our family was always walking the thin line between being amongst people who didn't agree with us, and yet through my father's religious beliefs.
And your grandfather.
Through my father's religious beliefs, trying to deal with the problems of racism and segregation, and to work toward a progressive stance on those things. And my father, he was brilliant at walking the line as a Presbyterian minister, walking the line with his Christian belief and trying to guide the congregation away from their normal instincts. And he did a pretty good job of it. He didn't really beat people over the heads with it. He just tried to live his life, and in his personal relationships with these people that disagree with him on his racial views, show what he considered the light of Christianity. And so it was a problem. I mean, it was a problem in that you got called nigger lover by your friends every once in a while. And but that was just the way it happened. That's just the way it was.
You think that influenced both of your kind of musical, you got into this genre of music?
Well, I think so. There was certainly, the people that, the people that were influential of the day. I mean, there was people that were influential that you listened to as a kid on the radio coming up, Tennessee Ernie Ford and Bill, I can't call it right now, but Eddie Arnold and Patsy Cline and all that great music. And then all of a sudden you started hearing this like the Kingston Trio and all this other kind of music, and that's when I started playing guitar, and I played piano before that, and then when I was in high school, Bob Dylan came along, and we got my brother and I got his Freewheelin' album, and we saw him when he came out, and that was just like, life-changing to see what he wrote. And then when I went off to college, I graduated from high school in '65 and went off to college, and just things changed radically around the world at that point. And those 4 years, graduating in '69, were, filled with just exactly what you're talking about, and that certainly led to a political stance. And yet, we're entertainers. We're not, trying to preach to anybody. But on the other hand, we do have something to say, and we try to say it in the way that his father did. Don't beat people over the head, but we're allowed to have our own opinion, and people can come see us or not.
Robert, did you have a role model? Was there somebody that said, that's somebody I'd like to emulate?
Well, I had musical influences, people I liked, and I would study these people, study their singing, study by listening more or less, and then as I sang their songs, I guess their influence came in. There are a bunch of great singers that I listened to. I guess most notably, one of the people that I think of is a guy by the name of Steve Young, who was a great songwriter and a great singer, even better singer, and he was one. I basically came to this music through listening to the music of that, as Linda mentioned, the folk music that was coming on the radio in the '60s, and that led me personally to pick up the guitar. And when you realized you could play the guitar and sing at the same time, I was always a singer. So that led me to that music of that I was hearing on the radio in the '60s. These folk music, I guess people call it now inauthentic folk music, but it was pop. It was pop folk music at the time. But for someone in South Carolina who never heard it before, and it was accessible to realize that I could be singing these songs as well. That I didn't have to have an orchestra behind me, or have to studied piano, for 8 to 10 years, that I could actually do this with playing the guitar. Well, heck, man, the door opened wide for me, and I ran right through with it. And then from then on, it's just been to the kind of music that we sing now, 50 years later or more. It's just been a learning process and an ability to understand the music, understand where it comes from, and to feel the heart and soul of it.
And I was just talking to somebody the other night that said, gosh, how long have you been doing this? And we're about to have a 45th anniversary here, June 2nd, and we've been playing. That's how long we've been playing together. And I'm like Robin. We both came to this music and then just wanted to find out where was this music coming from, and then took it back to the old time music. And it's just such a deep well, and there's so much to learn. It's a great way to have gone through life. I mean, to just always wanting to learn.
For your longtime colleague, Garrison Keillor is quoted as saying, individually their voices can melt cheese, and in duet they can do all-purpose welding.
Yes.
No one uses the English language like Garrison Keillor does.
That was the greatest quote. I mean, that was like, we started with Garrison early on. We started because of Peter Ostrushko, who's a great fiddle and mandolin player, guitar player for that matter. And he played on our first record, which we made up in Minneapolis because we had gotten involved in the music scene. There's a great music scene in Minneapolis, and we were getting work up there, and so and friends, so we went there. And so Peter was going to go on the road with us, and he came down to Virginia where we lived, and he said, "Oh, there's this guy starting this radio show. We got to call him and see if we can get on. If we have a Saturday night." And we did have a Saturday night that we could give him. So Robin called him on the phone, didn't you?
He was answering his own phone then. How times have changed. Yeah. But he's been great. Garrison has been great. He's been a great influence for us. The thing about it, more than anything else, not only do we get to be on the radio in front of 4 million people every week, but
not every week.
Well,
whenever we played. Yeah, whenever we played, right.
And
we're contradicting. Sorry.
But the real benefit for us was just being around him in his house and seeing how hard he worked. And the light went on with us, which said, boy, if this guy is this talented and he's working this hard, whoa, we better up the effort. And he made us take the role of being an artist. He made us take it a lot more seriously than we were at the time. And at the time, we thought we were taking it seriously. Yeah. But we saw what you really had to do, and Garrison was the reason for that.
And we had to we stepped up for him too. We answered the call, and that's why people say, "Well, how come you were the one?" And we still play with them. We do a trio show sometimes.
Gospel.
Yeah, or just from the three of us do other songs too. But we're still singing with them, and a lot of it is just he calls up and he has an idea, and you go with that idea and you come with some material and you make it happen on stage. You put it together quick. There's not going to be a huge rehearsal. It's got to come together quick, and it's got to feel good. It's got to be right. It's got to be entertaining, and has to be thoughtful. So it's a lot you have to do. But it was our singing, I think, that drew him to us, and then it was the fact that we could answer the call.
You are so well connected. Your career is iconic, but also with that is the collaboration with Garrison. Did it kind of work like the Grand Ole Opry in the sense that if you're available, you're going to be on the show? And did it happen because of
no, we don't like that at all. It's just whenever he wanted us, So when Garrison wanted us, he called us up, If we had the date open, we would go. I mean, if we always had the date open, if we had the date open, we took it.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very rarely did we turn it
And he
down.
would call sometimes and say, "Can you give me all your availabilities in the next 6 months?" And then they would pick up, the show would pick up maybe whatever they wanted from that. So it was just.
No, all we've ever done is answer the call, and luckily for us, for some unknown reason, he keeps calling.
And it's been.
Well, I understand why.
Yeah, we're good.
No,
Glad.
Let me just ask a crazy question. Detroit, you're in Detroit, 67, 68.
Yeah.
Detroit Tigers, world champions.
Right.
This is right in my wheelhouse. And the Motown.
Right.
There's at times as you're doing this sort of genre, do you ever feel like you'd say, come on, Linda, let's just do some Temptations today?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. When we sing with Garrison, and we do. I mean, not, but I mean, I love. We sing like, Under the Boardwalk, or we did a little bit of kind of doo-wop sort of stuff. We tried anyway, and I mean, I went to the Motown Review every year, and was a huge Motown fan, and knew all that stuff, and loved those singers, and I mean, how could you not like it? It was fabulous.
We had Willie Horton here just the other.
Oh, wow.
The Detroit Tiger time period. So
Really.
yeah, we digress, but that's
Yeah.
big time stuff.
Yeah.
It is. That's big time. Willie Horton. Yeah.
Yep.
Are you guys sports fans? Do you follow?
Oh, yeah.
What's your team?
Less and less. We're the one thing with us more than anything else is University of Virginia basketball. We follow
We're
that religiously
fanatically.
and have for 40 years.
Yeah.
Toward the end of like right now, I'm starting to really take an interest in the NBA's.
I'm kind of done with the NBA. Yeah.
But as the years have gone by, I've become less and less fanatical. But I still follow sports. In fact, I was walking down the street today, down in front of the Chautauqua Hall of Fame, and I was standing there looking at the pictures on the wall. And the guy comes out and says, "You know who these are?" And I knew every one of them. These pictures of these iconic baseball players.
What was the song you sang after UVA lost in the first round of the NCAA?
Oh, Lonesome Me.
Oh, Lonesome Me.
It was a hard one, man.
Everybody's going out and having fun.
That was
a hard one, man.
That was real.
And we were,
And of course, we were heartbroken. We followed
heartbroken. We were just heartbroken, and just felt so bad because we got a good coach and a good team, and they just ran into a bad day, man.
Yeah, it was a bad day.
It happens, and then we're gonna have to hear that every year. That's gonna be the opening of the NCAAs.
The March Madness every
Yeah.
time. It's going to be
And
the only
number one team
to ever lose to the 16th
Yeah,
seed, the
yeah.
only one seed. Oh man. Yeah,
Oh, well.
man.
Well,
Life goes on.
life goes on. I know they're pulling the plug on us here, but you've been terrific. And
Thank
we
you.
look forward to tonight.
Thank you very
Thank-
much. It's been
thank you.
terrific too.